I'm David Hutchins with VOA's Middle East Monitor. Coming up, Bashar al-Assad speaks. The Syrian president denies being in control of his own country and ordering a crackdown. Reporter Cecily Hillary joins me to talk about her exclusive interview with an ex-Syrian Army general who says he knows how to take Assad down. And shocking violence in Afghanistan causes tensions with Pakistan and beyond. It's all ahead on the Voice of America. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has denied he ordered the killing of thousands of anti-government protesters, telling a U.S. journalist he does not control the forces implementing his country's brutal crackdown. In a rare interview that aired this morning, Mr. Assad told ABC News that though he is president, he does not own the country, so they are not my forces. The Syrian leader said there is a big difference between having a policy to crack down and having mistakes committed by some officials. Assad questioned the UN death toll of 4,000 since unrest erupted in March, saying most victims were government supporters. He also denied the veracity of claims that a 13-year-old boy named Hamza al-Khatib, whose death galvanized protests and inflamed world opinion, was killed after being shot, burned, and castrated. U.S. State Department spokesman Mark Toner repeated the U.S. view that Assad is engaged in a brutal crackdown on a peaceful opposition movement. Toner said he finds it ludicrous that the Syrian president is attempting to hide behind a sort of shell game. You can see an excerpt of the interview with ABC News and Assad on MiddleEastVoices.com. Now, meanwhile, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton told members of the Syrian opposition on Tuesday she is interested in their bid for democracy. VOA's Suzanne Presto was traveling with Secretary Clinton and reported from Geneva.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton met senior Syrian National Council members to discuss their specific ideas for transitioning toward democracy, especially in ideas that include reaching out to minorities.
Because obviously a democratic transition includes more than removing the Assad regime. It means setting Syria on the path of the rule of law and protecting the universal rights of all citizens, regardless of sect or ethnicity or gender.
It was Clinton's first meeting with the 7 individuals, which included the Syrian National Council's president and its human rights and civil society coordinator. Although 7 Syrians met with Clinton, only 6 were comfortable revealing their identities. All 7 live in exile. It is only the second time Clinton has met with Syrian opposition members. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador to Syria Robert Ford returned to Damascus after being recalled in late October amid concerns for his safety. At that time, State Department officials said Ford was brought back to Washington as a result of credible threats and what a spokeswoman termed regime-led incitement targeting Ford. In response, Syria recalled its own ambassador. State Department spokesman Mark Toner issued a statement saying Ford's presence in Syria is an effective way to show the United States stands with the Syrian people. Ford has been an outspoken critic of the Syrian government's violent crackdown on political dissent. The United Nations says 4,000 people have been killed since the uprising against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government began in March. Suzanne Presto, VOA News, Geneva.
And joining me now is senior reporter Cecily Hillary, who has been very busy on our social journalism site, MiddleEastVoices.com. In the past week, Hillary has spoken with Captain Ayadik, who defected from the Syrian Armed Forces to join the Free Syria Army, and Colonel Riyad al-Assad, the commander of the Free Syria Army, who is seeking to topple Assad, Bashar al-Assad, of course. Today, she's going to share the thoughts of an interview that she did. This was in Arabic, so we don't have sound. But the retired Brigadier General Akil Hisham, who lives outside of Syria, he says he has a prescription for how to get rid of Assad. Cecily, who is Hisham?
Akil Hashim, he was born in Homs in 1942. He joined the army at about the age of 20, rose up through the ranks, served in several wars, ended up teaching in the War College. After the massacre, as they call it, in Homs in 1982, in which, 30 to 40,000 people were killed, I guess you could say he lost his taste for the military. He put in for retirement. It was denied to him right up till about 7 years later. He left of his own volition.
Okay, now, he mentioned in part of your interview the motivations of the soldiers now in Syria and contrasted that with how the soldiers behaved back when he was in the service. we're talking about 4,000 people estimated dead, according to the UN. What did Hisham say about what motivates these soldiers?
I guess the bottom line is fear and loyalty. Soldiers are absolutely groomed to be loyal and follow orders no matter what. There are basically four branches to the military, to the Army: the Republican Guard, the Army, the 4th Armored Division, and the Special Forces of the Green Beret, as well as police. These are all coming, if General Hashim is right, from the Alawite segment of society, the sect. Which is, what the ruling family is from, the sect of the ruling family. And this kind of guarantees a kind of a loyalty to the regime. They've had to rely on, because they aren't enough to handle the uprising now. They've had to bring in younger troops from just the regular conscripts and the regular people serving their compulsory military service. These are mostly Sunni, and therein lies a lot of the problem.
And you did mention in your earlier interview that Captain Iyad Deek was afraid that his own family would be targeted or killed, the fact that he did defect. So,
well, they're shot on spot.
Right.
For defecting. This is a major fear, so you go along with your orders.
Now, what I want to do right now is bring in on the line Rafif Jujati. She's a Syrian-American activist who is working to expose the human rights violations taking place in Syria. She works with activists in Syria and the opposition abroad, and she serves as the English language spokesperson for the LCC, that's the Local Coordination Committees of Syria. Are you there, Rafif?
I am, thank you.
Thanks for joining us in Cecily. I wanted to ask you both about the prospect of some sort of intervention. Now, your interview with the ex-general said that a buffer zone is essential, and some people have even said airstrikes or NATO getting involved, as they did with Libya, though there has really been no indication that NATO would get involved. There's been no statements, and there's actually been resistance to that. So I want to ask you, short of any NATO airstrikes or something else, what else is a viable option for taking this to the next level? The ex-general said buffer zone. What do you say, Rafif?
Well, I think the first order of priority is to establish some sort of humanitarian corridor, as the French government indicated. The humanitarian situation in Syria now is so dire that that's really where help is needed. I know many people on the ground are also calling for military intervention, but I think that's a process that will have to work itself out. The first order of priority is the humanitarian relief.
Yes, and in addition to humanitarian, something interesting in your interview, Cecily, we said that zone would actually allow people to not only take their guns, but maybe heavy artillery, and be able to those who defect would be able to regroup and perhaps come up with battalions, some sort of structure, right?
Well, absolutely. The vision is that it would be a safe haven not just for the refugees, some 12,000 of whom are still in Turkey, but also for the military. And General Hashim's feeling was that this would encourage more and more defectors to join their ranks. It would allow the Free Syrian Army a chance to kind of assemble, organize, and really design its offense on the regime. And, the feeling, not just with General Hashim, but with Colonel Riyad al-Assad, who I talked to earlier, is that it would really only be a matter of time before the regime would crumble, that this would really give them a much-needed base.
I have another question for you, Rafif. You've been reporting on human rights in Syria. We've been reporting on it, and as you know, Shams, which has a YouTube channel in Ugarit, the level of visual documentation of the human rights abuses are probably unprecedented in the Arab Spring, and is reminiscent of other atrocities that happened in the 20th century. So we're watching these human rights violations almost in real time, yet we still have had a very tepid international response. What do you say to that?
I say we need to correct that. There is a humanitarian crisis of genocidal proportion taking place in Syria, and the international community needs to step up and help put a stop to this.
But how? I mean, other than recording it and making it available on websites, is there anything that you can do? I mean, what is your strategy as part of the LCC? I mean, you certainly have the evidence, you have the numbers, you have the channels of communications to powerful people. but we're still seeing a very slow response vis-a-vis, let's say, what happened in Libya, where it began slow, but the international consensus was quite consolidated after only a few months' time.
But first of all, we'd like to see a recognition of the Syrian National Council. We'd like more countries to follow in the footsteps of Libya and Spain and France and Bulgaria most recently. So international recognition of the SNC is an important step. Humanitarian relief and assistance, whether through humanitarian corridors or, in fact, as a safe zone, would be another good step. Also, there's enforcement, total enforcement of sanctions to make sure there's no way to get around them on the part of the Assad regime.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. We look forward to talking to you again. It's Rafif Jujati joining me from the LCC, Local Coordination Committees of Syria, and Senior Reporter Cecily Hillary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
VOA Middle East is building an online network of reporters, bloggers, and citizen journalists called VOA Middle East Voices, and it's only on Facebook. You're invited to send us news tips or submit your own story ideas. Post links to underreported stories on our wall and participate in ambitious citizen journalism campaigns. Simply go to Facebook and search VOA Middle East Voices. Join the conversation.
Egypt's ruling military council has given some presidential powers to interim Prime Minister Kamal al-Ganzouri. The official news agency MENA reported today the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, or SCAF, will maintain control of the army and judiciary as it hands over more power to Ganzouri. Egypt's military rulers said on Tuesday they would amend the constitution to give the prime minister more power than his predecessor, Essam Sharaf, who quit amid unrest in the country last month. Critics accused the military ruling council of not giving the last cabinet enough influence. Ganzouri unveiled his new cabinet today, naming a former regional security head as interior minister. Mohammed Ibrahim will replace Mansour al-Isawi. Many opposition youth activists have been calling for a civilian replacement of Isawi, who also has a police background. Afghan President Hamid Karzai says he plans to confront the Pakistani government over an unprecedented suicide bombing Tuesday that targeted Shiite Muslims in Kabul, killing 55 people. Mr. Karzai said today that his government has launched an investigation, but that the attack originated in Pakistan with the Lashkar al-Gangvi militant group that is based there. The Sunni extremist group is affiliated with al-Qaeda and is responsible for a number of attacks against Shiites in Pakistan. So far, Islamabad has not responded to Karzai's statements. Karzai canceled a trip to Britain to visit with the victims of the blast and their families. Tuesday's blast in Kabul happened near the Abu Fazl shrine as Shiite worshippers gathered on Ashura, the holiest day of the Shiite Muslim calendar. Experts say the attacks, which came a day after the conference to discuss Afghanistan's future as international combat troops prepare to leave the country, underscores the importance of what was agreed in Bonn, that all countries in the region need to cooperate in securing long-term stability for Afghanistan. Now, one of those countries in the region is Tajikistan. As instability spreads in Afghanistan, neighboring Tajikistan seeks to hold the line at the border. VOA's James Brooke reports from Panjshir on Tajikistan's border with Afghanistan.
Russia's ruling duo sought to cool widespread anger over the vote by announcing small concessions on national TV. Prime Minister Vladimir Putin promised to shake up government if he is elected president in March. He promised to change governors and the cabinet. The cabinet has continued virtually unchanged during the 4 years of the Medvedev government, now widely seen as a caretaker time. For his part, President Medvedev ordered the government agency that conducted Sunday's election to investigate reports of vote rigging. Russia's president also reacted harshly to Western criticism of Sunday's election. As for foreigners, he said, Russia's political system is none of their business. But U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, on a visit to neighboring Lithuania, stepped up her criticism Tuesday, saying Russia's elections were neither free nor fair. A Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman immediately responded. She called Ms. Clinton's comments unacceptable. On Monday, after Ms. Clinton called for investigation into fraud charges, Konstantin Kosachev, a senior ruling party member, denounced the call as one of the darkest pages in Russian-U.S. relations. On Tuesday, U.S. Senator John McCain, a Republican, was less diplomatic. After hearing of Monday night's arrest near the Kremlin, Senator McCain tweeted this message to Prime Minister Putin: "Dear Vlad, the Arab Spring is coming to a neighborhood near you." In Moscow, Boris Gryzlov, Speaker of the Duma, reacted with outrage. He compared the American senator to the Mad Hatter in the book Alice in Wonderland. Russia's political unrest may now be taking an economic toll. On Tuesday, a finance ministry official raised the official estimate of capital flight from Russia. Now, he said, it will surpass $85 billion this year. James Brooke, VOA News, Moscow.
The UN's top envoy for Iraq is asking Baghdad not to close a camp for Iranian dissidents by the end of this year. Martin Kobler told the UN Security Council on Tuesday that the United Nations is working with the residents of Camp Ashraf and the Iraqi government to find a solution for resettling the camp's 3,000 residents, but will not resolve the issue before the December 31st deadline. From the UN, VOA's Margaret Bashir has more.
Martin Kobler took up his duties in Iraq in August. In his first briefing to the Security Council Tuesday, he said the Camp Ashraf issue is a matter of great concern and that many obstacles still remain before a plan is agreed that will satisfy both sides.
Clearly, the situation cannot be fully resolved before December 31st. I therefore appeal to the government of Iraq to extend this deadline in order to permit adequate time and space for a solution to be found. I also appeal to the leadership and residents of Camp Ashraf to engage constructively and with an open mind to this process. They should give serious considerations to the proposals under discussion.
Iraq has said it will close the camp on December 31st and then transfer the residents to other locations inside Iraq until they can be resettled in third countries where some hold dual nationality, or return to Iran under an amnesty. Others may be allowed to stay in Iraq if they qualify for refugee status. Many of the residents of Camp Ashraf have lived in Iraq for decades. It is a base of the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, a group the United States says is a terrorist organization. Former Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein, who fought a long and bloody war with Iran in the 1980s, gave Ashraf residents safe haven. The group often launched attacks on Iran from their base in eastern Iraq before Saddam's ouster in 2003. After the U.S.-led invasion, the United States oversaw the camp, but in 2009 transferred control to Iraq's Shiite-led government, which sees the camp's residents as a threat to national security. Iraq's UN ambassador, Hamid al-Bayati, told the Security Council that it cannot allow any group inside Iraq which attacks neighboring countries, and he urged those camp residents with dual nationalities to resettle in those countries.
I would like to assure the Security Council that my government doesn't want to force anybody to go back to Iran. On the other hand, we believe that around 900 of the residents hold dual nationalities, and we encourage them very much to go back to the countries they hold the nationality of.
Last month, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton said she would urge EU member states to accept residents of the camp. Margaret Bashir, VOA News, the United Nations.
On Tuesday, the United States officially opened the virtual U.S. Embassy Tehran. This is an interactive website aimed at providing services and information to Iranians despite the lack of official diplomatic relations. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton calls it a vehicle for Americans and Iranians to communicate without fear. VOA's David Gaulis reports from the State Department.
Secretary Clinton announced plans for the unprecedented Internet project in an interview with Voice of America's Persian service in late October. The website became operational early Tuesday, displaying a video message from the Secretary of State, who said it aims to help bridge the gap between the two peoples that opened when diplomatic relations were severed more than 30 years ago.
This is a platform for us to communicate with each other openly and without fear, about the United States, about our policies, our culture, and the American people. You can also find information here about opportunities to study in the United States or to obtain a visa to come visit us.
State Department officials say the virtual embassy will reduce at least somewhat the difficulty Iranians encounter in arranging travel to the United States. They will still have to visit Persian-speaking U.S. visa sections in Ankara, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai to obtain travel documents, but now they can do much of the application process online. The website also streamlines procedures for Iranians seeking to study at U.S. colleges and universities, with the aim of increasing the Iranian student population in the United States, which now exceeds 5,000. At a rollout event for the virtual embassy, Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Wendy Sherman said it is an effort to skirt the electronic curtain erected by the Tehran government to block Internet links between Iranians and the outside world. She said there had been no attempt by Iran to jam the U.S. website in its initial hours of operation, but said there are contingency plans in case that happens.
We have put resources into training people all around the world in ways to go around jamming. Many people already have private networks, virtual private networks, that allow them to go through and around efforts to stop them from getting Internet access. So we'll continue to do whatever we can. We think we have the technical capability to get it back up, even if it gets disrupted.
The virtual embassy includes information on U.S. policy toward Iran and challenges what a senior official here termed pervasive myths, among them that U.S. policy aims to overthrow Iran's government, that it opposes Iran's development of peaceful nuclear energy, and that U.S. nuclear sanctions are to punish the Iranian people. Iranians are invited to contribute comments and criticism through links to State Department Twitter and Facebook accounts provided on the new website. Iran responded caustically to Clinton's initial announcement of the virtual embassy, with Parliamentary Speaker Ali Larijani saying the project is doomed to failure. But a State Department official expressed confidence the new project will be popular, saying a State Department Persian Facebook page created earlier this year has already had about 1 million hits. The United States and Iran have not had diplomatic relations since 1980, after militant supporters of Iran's Islamic Revolution stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and held more than 50 Americans hostage for more than a year. Iran has had a diplomatic interest section in Washington, technically part of the Pakistani embassy, for several years, which handles consular passport and other matters for Iranian nationals in the United States. David Gallus, VOA News, the State Department.
And pro-government forces and tribesmen opposed to Yemeni President Ali Abdullah Saleh traded artillery fire on the streets of the capital Sana'a today. The accusations come in advance of the expected declaration of a national unity government to take over from ministers allied with the embattled president. The two sides traded blame for a flare-up of fighting in Sana'a's Hasaba neighborhood, the scene of a tense standoff for months between forces loyal to Saleh and opposition fighters from the country's most powerful tribal federation. Saleh agreed last month to step down after 33 years in power in exchange for immunity from prosecution. If the U.S.-backed deal brokered by Yemen's powerful Gulf Arab neighbors holds, Saleh would be the fourth dictator pushed from power this year by the Arab Spring uprisings. This has been VOA's Middle East Monitor. Join us Monday through Friday for news from the region and interest to the region. Also check us out at MiddleEastVoices.com. Our social journalism site, International Edition, is next with Cecily Hillary. Thanks for tuning in.
Are you following the uprisings in Syria, Egypt, and other Arab Spring countries? Want to contribute? Voice of America has launched a new social journalism website for the Arab Spring called Middle East Voices. Incubated by our thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter and dedicated journalists at VOA, this site takes a new approach to covering the region through investigative journalism, publishing your viewpoints and harnessing social media to tell stories in a new, innovative way. Become a contributor at MiddleEastVoices.com.